Today, we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, radicalized in conspiracy.
Oh, wait. Hold on one second, Denver.
Okay.
You know, I'm getting word she was just expelled from the Freedom Caucus.
Well, do we have anybody on the ground who could either deny or confirm that statement?
Are you in there? Are you in there? Are you in there? Are you in there? In there. I'm a spook in the engine.
Doug.
Spook in the engine. Well, yes.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, pal.
Yes. Hi, Matthew. Hi, Matthew.
You were going to make me believe in the reptilians. Are you okay?
I'm great. Why do you ask that? What you got questions? You got questions? I've got answers.
Well,
hi, Denver.
Doug, we got questions. I mean, Congress is in session. They're coming back today. They should be back tonight or tomorrow. I mean, what are you doing here? Aren't you talking to anybody?
I can't get anyone on record. I've been here for 3 days. 3 days.
Have you?
I'm a street walking cheetah with a heart full of napalm.
Hey, have you been? Okay, look, I know often they remodel stuff
I'm on the Mighty Peculiar.
In the house. Have you been like cutting or sanding drywall?
No, why do you ask such a thing? Why?
Have you been eating powdered donuts? I mean, what the hell's going on out there?
What am I, a kappa? What am I, a kappa? Are you a kappa? Are you a knock Denver Riggleman?
Well,
okay, all right, hold on. Okay, Jesus. All right, wait, okay, Chatty, let's hold it. Okay, so you've not been doing any remodeling?
No.
Okay, have you been to the White House, like, say, in the last, like, I don't know, like 7 days-ish?
Yeah, last weekend when you wanted me to get a statement about the UFOs, but they wouldn't let me pass the visitation center. Why?
Oh, so you've been on some tours. You've been on some tours.
Hold on. My phone is ringing. Mind your business. Hold on. Hello? Oh, guys, it's HR. I got to take this. But you are watching and listening to The Mighty Peculiar.
Hello, I am Denver Riggleman, and we are joined here this beautiful day by the beautiful, the luscious, the gazpacho of the world, Tinfoil Matt.
It's the justice served cold. Yes, I got a new job, guys. So this is like my 2-week notice. I am now a member.
Are you now the gazpacho police?
Yep.
Man.
So yeah, I know. And that probably kind of tells you what we're talking about today, doesn't it? Because we didn't say that yet.
We did. I guess we didn't say that yet, did we?
All right.
I guess we are talking about.
Let's play a game with the viewers. If you see someone wearing a shirt that says gazpacho police, what do you think we're talking about?
I think, you know what? I think what happened there, Matt, is what we had so many assumptions about gazpacho police that people would automatically guess what it's about, that we are talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, radicalized in conspiracy. Correct. And probably one of our most incredible topics. I mean, I know we did RFK Jr. I know we've done UFOs. Yeah. I know last week, was a crazy week for us, but Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of covers the whole gamut. So I'm pretty excited to talk about her today.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to try and get a lot of information out of you in this case, because this is going to be a little bit of a, I'd say it's a Q&A with Denver Riggleman is what a lot of this episode is going to be about. But first, as always, we've got to like this episode. Let's see, what is it? Subscribe.
That's right.
To the channel and turn on the notifications. Otherwise, you're going to get such a gazpachoing that you will not, you'll never recover. So, again, for those that are just listening and not seeing this lovely shirt in Denver's lovely hotel room, we're a podcast on anywhere that you get podcasts. And if we're not where you like to get podcasts, you could probably email us or something and let us know, and then we'll end up there too.
Yep.
So.
It's a stew of podcast channels.
Exactly. I don't know what they all are. So I should know, but I don't.
Well, we saw today, just to let everybody know, I mean, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Amazon. So we're just about anywhere you can find any type of podcast now. So really excited. And I want to thank you, Matt. Thank Doug for getting us on all those channels in a very professional way. So we are really lucky to be doing this right now.
And one thing we've learned, especially today, Doug is nothing if not completely professional.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with that.
No, we're good. We're good.
We're good.
He's totally fine. Don't worry, guys. We don't need an intervention yet. Okay. So, as a way to get into this topic of Marjorie Taylor Greene, I've got a little game for you. It's going to be 2 quotes, and you're going to have to guess the speaker. All right?
Okay.
So the quotes. So,
okay.
So first quote. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Recently, there's been a lot of chatter in small circles among those who search for the truth. There has been an anonymous voice with obvious intelligence beyond the normal person telling of things to come. They call themselves Q. Make no mistake, Q is a patriot. However, the things Q tells about is beyond what the average American wants to ever hear about. Time will only tell if these things are real. Who said that?
That sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene to me, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, you know what? Ding, ding, ding. You got it. This is a game. I found a game you're good at. That's a callback joke.
Well, I'm worried.
To the RFK episode.
You always surprise me, so I'm surprised by these questions right now. So this is a real test. So
this is a real test,
ahead, Matt. This is a real test.
Quote number 2.
All right.
Disinformation hinders our free exchange of ideas and creates super spreader digital viruses that create a fever of nonsense. Who said that?
Oh God, that's a tough one. It's a very smart human being. I think it's somebody who's really just well-versed, incredibly educated. Somebody's probably smart, charismatic, probably pretty good looking. Is it Denver Riggleman?
It is Denver Riggleman. Man, that's great. You're 2 for 2 in this.
That was fantastic, man. Thanks. No, that's amazing that you pulled that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, because you know what? When I was thinking about how to approach this episode, because as we kind of talked about, like, you know, I'm not always particularly interested in just doing like something, you know, some people just like the constant dunking on people that they disagree with. And again, there's always a place for that. Macho Police is the place for that. But I didn't, you know, I wanted to try and figure out a little bit more of, try to say what she says about the moment that we're in. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about arguably what got her into her current position, which is now the quote I just read was from an article she wrote in 2018, which has since been apparently scrubbed from the internet because such is the way that she does not want to talk about QAnon anymore. But I wanted to take that and kind of juxtapose it with your farewell address from Congress.
That's right. That was from December 10th, 2020.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, because to me, yours was a warning about where the party shouldn't go. And hers is like the, let's go this way.
Well, and that way it could be pointed towards any type of satellites, right? It could be somewhere in space. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's an interesting thing to me. You know, we went at it at the beginning, right? When I was transitioning out and she was transitioning in, you know, I'd already been attacked by QAnon, had done the same-sex wedding, right? I'd been accused of being the tool of the Antichrist and the general of the sodomite armies. Original.
I mean, work if you can get it.
Right. I'd also, well, I don't even know. There's so many awful jokes that went through my head right there that I can't even say. Yep. The other thing, too, that was interesting is that's when I was accused of laundering money for George Soros through our distilleries. And after being called tool of the Antichrist, my wife was called the spawn of Satan. And I thought that interesting because well, that's what I was going to say. Damn it.
No, I stole your joke. That's right.
You just stole my joke right out from under me. I just pulled that rug right out from under me.
Sorry.
So, you know, the worldwide power couple. Damn it, Matt. So anyway, so there you go. What a start. But the issue is that we're now so into each other's heads. I think it's interesting you talked about that being scrubbed from the internet, which you talked about QAnon. That's actually why this show I think is so valuable is that I have a team, a forensics team based on my company that can look at publicly available information and actually look at what people deleted. And it's very fortunate that I have that kind of capability because it allows me to see how people actually evolve.
Yeah.
And if you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene beforehand, which we're going to get into, all the way to today, you have somebody who really, insane leopard spots don't change, right? And
right.
and I think that's what we're going to be talking about today, because this is near and dear to my heart. Not Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously, but this whole conversation about disinformation, but the whole conversation about how unserious can turn to serious danger for the American public based on this sort of metastasization of crazy that we're seeing. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation today, Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that, again, I kind of had some difficulty wrapping my head around this episode because, one, as I've said before, there's less history involved, and usually that's kind of the way I find a narrative to go through an episode. And really, almost to just briefly kind of touch on like her background and the reason why we've called this episode Radicalized and Conspiracy, and think of it as a somewhat companion piece to our RFK Jr. episode, which was birthed in conspiracy, right? Is for all intents and purposes until 2016, when like Trump, became everywhere and we couldn't escape him, she seemed to have led a pretty normal life. I mean, she's from a well-to-do family. She took ownership over the family business with her and now her ex-husband, I think, were the people in charge of it. Most people have said that like she didn't seem to be very active in that business after like a little while after taking it over. And one of my kind of theories about her seems to be that I think she gets bored because she goes from active in, this family business and kind of active in her church. She was Catholic growing up, switched to some kind of mega church in Georgia. She's constantly kind of searching, like, okay, she gets the family business. Great. It's okay. She's got church. Great. Okay. But then she finds CrossFit. And then suddenly it seems like the family business falls by the wayside. She ends up buying like a partnership in a pre-existing gym. And that becomes her, till this day, a big part of her identity. And then it seems like Trump comes along. She becomes a big early booster of him. And then QAnon. And there, I think we get her real origin story. She fell down the rabbit hole, bitten by radioactive rabbits and all of that stuff. And now we have the Marjorie Taylor Greene that we see now, right? Like,
well, I think when you're talking about her background, when you're talking about her bio, I think crazy lies latent like shingles. And I think
there's a vaccine for that, though. The vaccine. There really is, in some respects. I think it's very difficult to find a facts-based vaccine for when somebody sort of not only goes in the rabbit hole, right, but they decorate it in their own furniture and their own pastels and colors, right? So when they kick the rabbit out and they move in,
move in, right? And now it's the Marjorie Taylor. We can call it the green hole now. And so I mean, I think that that's. I don't know if we're probably going to have to redact that. But I think, though, when you're talking about the green hole, right, what a lot of people like to go into, right, I think it was always there for her, right? And when you talk about the CrossFit also has its own language. You can talk to a lot of people where CrossFit sort of becomes their life. They become addicted to it. They become wrapped up into it, right? And you have the CrossFitters and everything they do. And that's great because I lifted weights for a long time. I think fitness is great. But CrossFit does have its own community. I think some people are attracted to that. And I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is very attracted not only to that community, but when you talk about QAnon and things like that, you're talking about an agitator in training. And I think you have somebody who really wanted to professionalize that and who wanted some type of fame. And I think that's a really unhealthy mix. You're talking about the mega church, if you put religion or sort of evangelicalism with this wanting, this want for fame, this want to be on top. Yeah, this other area where she's fairly ignorant, right? And she is susceptible, which we've used that before. That is a toxic stew.
Yeah.
And to see that evolution into Q from somebody who is a 9/11 truther, somebody who had some of these belief systems to begin with, my guess is she was already down the rabbit hole well before 2018. Yeah. My guess is she probably already was talking crazy views in her living room and to people at work well before that.
Right. Well, and it looks like from the evidence that she hasn't like successfully completely gotten scrubbed, and that is still it seems like what happens in in the 2017 into 2018 is it really does start like the QAnon promotion, promoting QAnon and writing about it seems to almost become her full-time job, and just being that agitator, right? Because then we're not, she's because. To my own surprise, like, because she's so, she hangs like heavy over so much of our discourse, I kind of forget that, like, 2020, that was the first election that she was in, right? Like, you kind of, I already think about her as like, oh, she was there when you were there. But no, you guys like passed, like, you were leaving as she was coming in. But because she had successfully kind of been making a name for herself at that point since about 2018. I think we got a very early indication of that she was somehow going to be more effective at using the QAnon stuff as a platform in which she now will make a name for herself.
Well, I think a lot of people, when I ran for Congress, I came from a business and military background, right, Matt? I had this sort of the CV, the resume that said that I had done something, whether it was being a decorated military member, whether it was deploying, whether it was starting my own companies, whether it was the education that I had, the fact that I supported the Office of Secretary of Defense. I had this vast sort of counterterrorism and intelligence background. I had a real sort of job and a real sort of baseline to where, even though it wasn't politics, it looked like I was somebody who could lead. I think the other way that you come up, you have professional staffers, people that were born in politics, who just wanted to be a politician, like the Ted Cruzes of the world, and on the Democratic side too, right? You have people that's their number one thing they've ever wanted to do, and they have no other talents otherwise, like Ted Cruz. So you have these sort of different
not even good at it.
No, again, I think he actually saw the third path as something that was very effective for him too, and that's the professional conspiratorial agitator path, which seems to be what some of the Q folks are going in, and people that they sort of grasped that the base was there too. So I'm going to say something. I'm going to humbly submit something. I believe Marjorie Taylor Greene was radicalized maybe by somebody who was like a conspiracy elder, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who mentored her in the ways of batshittery. Yeah. But I think also, on the other side, I think that you have members of Congress saw that batshittery was a viable way not only to fundraise, but to get reelected. So not only do I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is radicalized or she's conspiratorial, I think actually where she lived and the base that she is, the people that are there were part of that, because it is a community thing, right? These belief systems are community based. I've been warning about that. You talked about December 10th. Yeah. People gravitate towards this actor in their own movie, good against evil, black and white, apocalyptic messaging, where the deep state and globalists become so overwhelming in their life that they can't see anything else, whether it's false flags or government types of intervention. So I believe that I think it's symbiotic. Yeah. I think that 1 + 1 = 3 when it comes to the group or the voter base, and somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And my guess is Marjorie Taylor Greene, it might have been a digital prophet like QAnon, right? She had a mentor, and that mentor could have been digital or could have been physical. My guess is she got caught up in the chans. She got caught up in the encrypted message boards. She got caught up on like QAnon Twitter. So all of a sudden, this whole mess, this whole morass, right, enveloped her. And let's not forget the most important thing, right? The actual baseline of why all that worked is because she's a moron. So now you have all of this sort of, working in tandem. So that's why I think it is, again, important to go from the beginning to the end. Right. And some of the things that you discovered, and also the research that we did just on what she said. And by the way, I say this on almost every show. We are talking about people who self-identify. Yes. We don't have to do, right. So when I say research, we're talking about validated data and usually what people are saying about themselves and then putting that out there on a public forum. Right.
And that's kind of, again, that's key, because all of the stuff that she was doing that positioned her to be where she is right now, which is arguably, I mean, some people will say, more powerful than the Speaker of the House, or at the very least is just, side by side with the Speaker of the House. She doesn't get there without without self-identifying all as a conspiracy theorist, like as a QAnon booster, and it doesn't stop with QAnon. I mean, it's not like it was QAnon and then that was it. She definitely went it felt like the mind virus, right? Like it just it infected her, and suddenly everything was a conspiracy, because usually we see that happen, right? Like people always worry about a slippery slope, and it's usually a really dumb argument. But I kind of feel like sometimes we get with conspiracy theorists is like, as soon as you open up to one of them, I think that's where the real slippery slope is, because very rarely what is it? What's the potato chip where, once you pop, you can't stop? Well, once you conspiracy, you can't stop conspiracying. Theorying.
Yeah, it's very difficult to stop eating.
Workshop that.
It's difficult to stop eating QAnon chips, right? And
yes,
and I don't even want to say because I know what the brand is. I don't know if we're allowed to say it. I don't want to say.
Right. We'll just call them frazzle chips.
Well, frazzle chips. Actually, we should brand that ourselves. We should have frazzle chips. And
okay,
every frazzle chip.
TM, copyright, just all of that stuff, guys. Frazzle trips is owned wholly by the Mighty Peculiar.
It's almost like we need sponsors or something. You know what I mean, Matt? It's
funny that you say that, because this seems like a good time for an ad break, because this time we actually have a sponsor. So I will do one of the TV things and I'll go.
Hey, have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a compilation of Marjorie Taylor Greene's vast catalog of batshittery together in one terrific collection? Well, today's your lucky day, because TMP proudly presents Sporkfoot's Greatest Hits Volume 1. Get the classics like Democrats are a satanic cult of communists, or Democrats are a satanic cult of pedophiles, or Democrats are a satanic cult run by the globalist George Soros. You'll also get to watch her perpetuate the idea that the Parkland shootings were a false flag operation and that 9/11 was an inside job. Who can forget these MTG classics such as Muslims don't belong in Congress, or black people are enslaved by the Democratic Party, who are in turn enslaved by the globalist George Soros. But if you act now, you'll get a Gazpacho Please t-shirt and maybe even this free yoga mat. No reason. So head on down to the Mighty Peculiar and ask for Sporkfoot's Greatest Hits Volume 1 while supplies last. On my shoulder.
And we're back. So,
good stuff.
We have a great sponsor on this show now.
We do. Only the classiest sponsors. I mean, that's all we want is we want to make sure that everybody understands, how serious we are.
This is becoming a very, very classy and big production. But big. Okay, so we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're talking about how she basically went so far down the rabbit hole that she just moved in and just basically pulled an Elmer Fudd and just kicked bugs right on out. Okay. So I wanted to kind of guide this discussion through some of the different things that she has said, some of the ridiculous things, but specifically the ones that hint at longer term, where she's tapping into maybe darker things than she is even that most people would even recognize. I guess let's say it that way. But first, it sounds like you, Denver, have a little bit of a personal story about interacting with Marge.
Well, I mean, there's been a few times. You got to remember too. I'm the one who found the text messages where Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about martial law.
Oh how's that guy doing?
Right. Yeah. You talk.
You know what?
Yeah, Marshall's doing great.
I have to say,
he's doing great.
Martial Law, his first album, you know, and the tour that he ended up doing with Marshall Crenshaw, whew, that fantastic.
Right. It was. And, you know, I think, you know, incredible duo. I thought maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't actually referring to Marshall when she talked about a bunch of her and her individuals thought martial law was a possibility. I think she actually texted that to Meadows on January 17th, 3 days before Biden's inauguration. And I remember reading that after reading all the other crazy stuff that I saw in those text messages. And, you know, you're talking about months later, but I'd already been in altercations with her based on calling her out on her conspiracy theories. Yeah. And I believe it got under her skin because she came at me with what the far left did to me when they made up the Bigfoot erotica story, right after, you know, with my book, Bigfoot is Complicated. So I remember that she thought she really got a humdinger on me. And I remember there was a lot of interaction with that tweet. So I just went ahead and posted a copy of my book because I thought maybe that'd be a good chance to sell some copies, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do too, and I push back that there's nobody dumb. You have to be at a level of stupid to believe that I was in a Bigfoot erotica. But on the other hand, that's another disinformation. Right. Really, it's a story that came from the far left, and that's because the person I was against had a daughter who was an actress, and she was able to make it viral, right, worldwide. Something that was completely untrue and ridiculous. And I think on the other side, I talked about being the general of the sodomite armies and the tool of the Antichrist. You know, the left and the right both have their actors and players that like to do this just because they want to win in politics. The thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene is the thing that's different about her, the person who ran against me on the left did that because they were afraid of losing and they were completely cynical and they didn't actually believe I was in a Bigfoot erotica. They're just awful human beings. Right. Yeah. They're low lives. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she drinks her own bathwater and she gets drunk on it. Right. And that's the difference, right? Is that you think she's unserious or you're laughing at it, but it's very serious. Right. And the fact that she would come at me with more disinformation really fit her MO. That's all she has, right? Is making things up out of vapor or pulling it from online because she seems unable to discern fact from fantasy. Right. Well, and it's funny because like at the point that she would be doing that, so are we talking is she in Congress at the point that you're having? Yeah, I believe she was in Congress by this time or right when she came in, probably in the first quarter or second quarter of 2020, I would say 2021. So if I remember correctly. There's few things like worse than being the person who like thinks they found the hilarious YouTube video and is like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I got to share this with everyone. And then you start sharing it with people and they're like, yeah, we saw this like 5 years ago. Like, where have you been? That was the issue. It's like exactly what she did, which is amazing. Like that she's like, amazing. Who is this guy? Oh, Bigfoot erotica, as if that was like the new thing to go at, which shows that one, she definitely didn't read your book, which that doesn't surprise me. But it's like she didn't even read people's comments about your book. Or the New York Times or the Rolling Stone or all the publications who had the interviews. And finally, after the first 3 to 4 days where people thought I was actually a Bigfoot porn aficionado. And by the way, I should have made some money on that. You know, Pornhub had it. Yeah, I heard somewhere that Pornhub had an 8,000% increase in Bigfoot porn searches after my story came out. And I'm like, we call that the Riggleman bump, right? So, you know, so I'm not quite sure. Yeah. Where's your payout there? Where's my payout on this thing, right? And, you know, I had to buy $1,000 Bigfoot suit to do my cover for Bigfoot It's Complicated. At least they could have paid me off on that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so, hopefully it wasn't a used Bigfoot suit. Was that new? Because if that was already a search people were doing before, you don't want to know where that suit came from. Denver Riggleman doesn't buy used Bigfoot suits, okay? No, okay. I mean, you heard it here first, everyone. Denver Riggleman does not buy used Bigfoot suits. And I'm not into fumigation, my friend. Right. So let's come on. Okay. So now it's time to talk about some of the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said, some ideas that she has, let's say, leaked out into the political system. Like, I don't want to say their thoughts. I'm trying to, but I also don't want to insult her intelligence, although I kind of need to for this section because she's afraid that straight people are going to go extinct. And I don't know how that's supposed to work. Well, actually, It would be rough.
Like civilization is going to continue.
No. I mean, if you think about it, if straight people go extinct, we are extinct.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's pretty interesting that she said that. And by the way, I'm glad. I don't think we should call it thoughts. I think we should call it channeling or attunements. I think that's probably right. I think that's probably a better way to present whatever is actually erupting from her mouth. I think is a channeling or an attunement, right? Some kind of prophetic, soulful type of belief system. And I think we need to, respectfully call them channelings.
Yes. Okay. Channelings is perfect because, again, like I try not to be too judgy, but at the same time, these aren't thoughts. Like these are things that people are just that she is either hearing readings from somewhere or she is just making stuff up.
So she had a channeling that deep inside, based on the deep state and the overwhelming globalist pattern of destroying the Christian underpinnings of our nation. She channeled that straight people will be going extinct. Right.
Now, as someone who, let's see here. I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Like, when was the Satanic Panic?
Well, I know my Satanic Panic was in the 1980s.
Okay.
Right? That's when that's when I got, when I had my buddy, I'll make up a name, Wayne. My buddy Wayne told me that his mom was pursued by Satanists through the woods, and that's why they maneuvered. That's why they maneuvered. That's why they moved to Manassas, Virginia. So that, I come so close to saying such awful things, and then I pull back because I have to remember that I was a United States congressman.
For some people, they say like the 60s have never ended. Well, I think for Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Satanic Panic never ended. Because
and by the way, I actually think that's a smart statement. I don't think, listen, I know that's funny, but it's not.
Right.
It's almost funny because it's true.
Right. Because she's doing exactly the same things. Like, right. So, okay. She is convinced that, and it's sad to say this sounds cliche now, but because we've heard it so much, that so many people of prominence and power are Satanists, and they are doing the most Satanist things that ever Sataned. Like, it's just like, it is
like sacrificing children.
Yes. Do you think that she's found that is particularly like just effective with her base, or do you think that the hope is that they're going to recapture some of that, like almost the magic of the Satanic Panic in the 80s, which means really mainstream it? Like, is it a base strategy? Like, this is a way for me to talk expressly to the people that are putting me in office because this is the stuff they already believe? Or is it like, I want to, I'm trying to push this out further into the mainstream and return us to those days where Dungeons and Dragons was evil and, all of that stuff?
I think it builds. I think it's stratified. I think she's now an evangelist on her own level, right?
Yeah.
And what she's doing. But on the other hand, you got to remember with fundraising, hyperbole and outrage are the best ways to actually make money. I think the fundraising flyers, whether it's digital, whether it's email, whether you're talking about commercials, the more hyperbolic or outrageous you are, the more money you can get from people, right, who think that somehow fear or somehow that their money will assuage, right, the fear that they feel that this person is going to stop this evil from coming. And I'm not even saying this in a bad way. I'm going to say this bluntly, Matt.
Yeah.
Is that if people believe in satanic portals, why wouldn't they believe in Moloch, or why not hook that to the QAnon conspiracy theory of hashtag save our children, right?
Right. Which
now
is
you're
exactly the same. I mean, that was a bumper sticker before it was a hashtag. That's
absolutely
that's the history there.
Right. And a lot of people are like, well, what's wrong with Save Our Children? I remember I saw this first in my district with the Q pins. Yeah. I saw the Q flags. Now you're talking 2019. I was one of the first to actually see this. So when you're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, it is so unbelievable, right? The math that you have as you're cross radicalizing between the base and the actual member, right, based on them being able to raise money and to win elections and to have this sort of love, this love when you go into churches, when you go into community centers. It is a really great feeling when everybody there is completely for you. Matt, it is a high. Now,
Sure.
after I did it's a high, but after the gay wedding for me, when I officiated that, after that, I would go into a crowd of 70, like I did, I think, in Pennsylvania County, Virginia, and 1 to 2 people there might have supported me, and the rest thought that, I was definitely the tool of the Antichrist. And I'm not even saying this with a smile.
Right.
This is what happened. So I think when you're talking,
it becomes the fear is the motivator, right? Is that
the fear is always
saying?
the motive.
And in this case, she is basically, it becomes a very tactical and practical thing to use this because to go back to something you said earlier, she's now casting herself in the lead role of this apocalyptic battle, right? She is now positioned herself as someone who is like thwarting like the hordes of Satanists coming. So whereas your crowd may, was largely negative towards you because of the way you positioned yourself with it, hers is probably the opposite. There's probably, a couple people there protesting her, but everyone else is there for her.
She's winning by overwhelming margins. If you think about, and I know him well, her opponent, I know him very well. When he went, right, he raised millions of dollars. I think he got just over 30% of the vote. Right. So let's be honest, right? The base is also a driver of this. Let's not take accountability away from the people that are actually pulling the voting lever. I think too that when you're talking about hyperbole and outrage, and you're talking about this good against evil mentality, Marjorie Taylor Greene has positioned herself as a general in this spiritual warfare battle. Yes. So you're hearing spiritual warfare or self-identifying as a Christian nationalist like she did. Right. All this stuff with Moloch, and I'm bringing this around, believe it or not. As you know, I know this topic. Yeah. All this Save Our Children, Moloch, all this stuff about the deep state and Democrats, right, liking to inject themselves with adrenochrome, molesting or about to kill children when their adrenaline is at the top mark, right? It's the Jim Caviezel syndrome, right? Right. It's all of that in a box of donuts or cocaine powder on Doug's jacket. So it's all of that, right?
Alleged cocaine powder.
Alleged. So that's why I think when you see these satanic panic type of stuff that's happening, it's just par for the course. Listen, crazy leopards don't change their spots. Right. It's just what they do, and it's effective.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to a little bit. Okay. So let's put Satan back in his place. Get thee behind me, right? And that's not where he belongs. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome, everyone. Okay.
You both.
All right.
Person.
So let's talk about mass shootings, because this is one of those. Okay. We kind of touched upon this before. Again, for anyone who watched or listened to our Robert F. Kennedy Jr. episode, he tried to put forth an idea about the cause of them being prescription drugs and stuff like that. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene has very little to say about cause of this kind of stuff. And she has nothing really to say about any solutions per se. What she mostly says about any kind of mass shooting is that it's the tried and true. It is all of them are orchestrated in order to be the reason the government can come in and take people's guns away. And to me, this is one of those ones where, we all have our kind of issues where things just really get us angry. And obviously shootings should get anyone angry. And if you want to say that they didn't happen, then I really have issues with you. But I think this idea of still using the tactic that the government is constantly orchestrating these things to take guns away seems absurd.
Matt, it's a combination of the false flag crisis actor, that the slant angle theories that she's assuming or presuming, or she's implying that there's crisis actors, that a lot of these shootings are somehow manipulated by the deep state or the government, right, for gun control. A lot of that is, it's the Alex Jones playbook.
Oh yeah,
it's the same thing, right? So every time I hear these type of things, I get angry. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, you're making light of a real tragedy that affects people on such a level it's hard to define. Right. It's beyond comprehension for me, Matt. We have children, right? Think about what would happen if our children were taken out in a mass shooting. The absolute, I don't even have the words, right? I don't have the ability to dredge that.
there's a part of me that understands people not being able to process such trauma. And you see it where people kind of escape into some kind of fantasy world. But that's not like, when we say they're calling this a false flag, it's not because they're processing grief. It's because they're trying to use it to say, once again, that there's some tyrannical government over them that is going to come in and do harm to them, right?
What I find is that the weakness of somebody who's processing trauma when it didn't directly affect them is absolutely infuriating to me. You don't see the parents of the children talking about crisis actors because it was their kids.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so I hate to peg people's common sense meter on this, Matt, but I think that's why on some level I have such rage for people that represent our government that don't know the difference between fact and fantasy, and also don't have any realization that what they're saying is hurting people on a level we can't comprehend.
Right.
So, that's why, and I've always said this too, and I think people have heard me say this, is that false flags are the bastion of the least talented conspiracy theorists. And I think that's, false flags take no real intelligence to actually to unravel or to actually create, right? That's what they do, right? And I have to say, we've talked about, her satanic issues with Moloch, and we've talked about crisis actors. That is and if you see the evolution and you go all the way to January 6th, you see that evolution of hers grabbing onto any conspiracy theory at that point to try to rationalize her belief systems or her worldview, her channelings, her attunements.
Right. Yes, her channelings. Right. How much do lasers weigh?
Oh, goodness. It depends on the laser.
Okay.
If you think a pocket
if it was
laser,
like in space, do you think okay? Am I saying are we talking about like the 8,000-pound laser in the room, or are we talking about like?
Well, if you're talking payloads, right? Lasers probably have, and I've seen a few. There is some bulk to certain types of lasers. I can tell you that.
Yes. Okay. Well, we all know about her infamous Facebook post where in which she blamed some California wildfires on possibly some sort of laser from space because George Soros owned a company that was like.
Was it Soros or the Rothschilds? It might have been the Rothschilds or Soros.
It might have been the Rothschilds, but and this is actually about to bring me right to the point. She uses those interchangeably, which is why it became the Jewish space laser what became the joke name for it, right? Because essentially, let's see here. How did she describe it? Okay, I'm just gonna
go ahead. Read.
I'm going to read a little bit from this what Denver's company provided for us. But so it was. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Yep. Okay, you're right. Okay, so this is the best part. Okay. So keep in mind, we are talking. So this is November 17th, 2018, right?
Yes.
So, hey, you were like just newly elected.
I was just, I was.
Guess what she was doing? Writing on Facebook about how some people saw. Oddly, there are all of these people who have said they saw what looked like lasers or blue beams of light causing fires. And yes, Rothschild Inc. is who she blamed for that one. So sorry, George Soros, you were not involved in the space lasers. That's my bad. I just assume you're behind every horrible thing that people talk about. So,
well, Rothschilds and George Soros are both Jewish. So, but
I'm still waiting for that check that I keep hearing about. Like, Soros is paying everyone, and I still haven't gotten one. So,
I was also funded by George Soros after I officiated the gay wedding. Come on, man. All of us are.
Okay, it's Matt Anderson. Just make it payable. Okay. But yes, okay. So space lasers. And really what we're talking about here is she's doing the almost the cliched anti-Semitic conspiracy stuff.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's it. She read something and she processed it in that way. And then she talked about lasers starting forest fires, linked it to the Rothschilds, which whoever said that is an anti-Semitic trash bag.
Yeah.
That's what happened. It's that simple. And again, we don't have to interleave all kinds of channelings from Marjorie Taylor Greene into some kind of narrative where she might have been mistaken. No. If you're going from satanic panic, right, or you're going from satanic panic to crisis actors to lasers that are funded, right, by the Rothschilds, who are part of every conspiracy theory, there is a linkage there, right? Yeah. When you're talking about this, it's first of all completely bonkers, completely. But what is the other part about this? The other part about this is there's some secret government or overarching globalist organization that's able to control all events, which is amazing. And I believe, and I'm going to go out there on this, I believe a lot of that goes back to is that if you already believe there's a supernatural being that controls all those events, how much of a stretch is it that there's an overarching globalist or deep state, right? Cabal that also can do that. It's really no different. Something else controls your life and it's out of your hands.
Yeah. And I would like everyone who's watching or listening to just kind of just put a pin in what Denver just said, that there's something allowing or controlling your lives and thoughts, because we'll come back to that in a second. We're going to do two more of her just kind of greatest hits, as I keep calling them, which is not great for me to call.
Her greatest channelings?
Right, her greatest channelings, her most loathsome channelings. Okay, it's hard to think about Marjorie Taylor Greene and not think about the pandemic, the plandemic, as she would like to call it, repeatedly and on Facebook, of course. Also about vaccines, and particularly the thing that I'm curious about is she is one of the people that will say, not unlike Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but she does it a little bit differently, that these vaccines are actually changing you genetically or altering your body in some way that is not at all what they're doing. And she then refers to herself, who is unvaccinated. Now, I'm assuming she just means from COVID vaccine. I don't know that she's been a lifelong anti-vaxxer, because that does not seem to. It's weird how there's so many people that have been fine with vaccines for so long, and now suddenly it's not. But she refers to herself and others like her as either pure blood or pure bloods. That to me sounds, first of all, racist. But I'm going to assume that there's something behind that terminology.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's Blade 4.
Yes.
But I think, what was it, Stephen Dorff? And then
that was in Blade 1. Yeah, yes.
That was Blade 1, but he killed the purebloods, remember?
Right, yep.
Didn't he? Yeah, in Blade 1. So that's pretty interesting, right? That we're back to Stephen Dorff and Wesley Snipes when we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and purebloods. As soon as I hear pure blood, I hear blood and soil, right? I hear, right? I hear racist marchings, right? I hear things that come from Germany, that's what I hear. But the other thing that I hear when somebody says they're a pure blood is pure unadulterated idiocy. And I think when you're looking at
self-identifying again, right?
Well, I mean, they're self-identifying, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, is that we are looking at what we've talked about so far, Matt. Everybody says, "Oh, wow, Denver's got a research company. He's into artificial intelligence, right? They can do deep dives, open source intelligence, cross discovery. They can do identity resolution." You look at all these things, right?
Yeah.
But it comes down to, a lot of times when you're looking at publicly available information, you're looking at those who self-identify, right? Then you back up that self-identification with data, or with some type of facts-based insights based on documentation.
Right.
And so when you look at what's going on out there, and you see somebody saying pure blood, and it's somebody who most likely was vaccinated at birth, there seems to be a cutoff where when they hit sort of the conspiracy meter, when they hit the attunement and channeling stage of their life, where maybe they were sort of hiding it or suppressing it, when the shingles actually crosses the threshold, right? It's like crazy cross the blood-brain barrier. And they forgot, right, that they had actually been vaccinated and had other things injected into their bodies. How about tetanus shots? Or had they ever had antibiotics? Have they ever had
parable to being like born again, right? Isn't that kind of part of that? Like, where it's like it almost doesn't matter. You've kind of what has happened before, but it's like you are you were born again unvaccinated? Can that be
There's
thing?
a pure blood, when you're talking about sort of the evangelical part of this, the scary part about it is that it's almost as if there's a purity that they have. And you're right, there's a born again sort of connotation to it, but there's a purity away from those people that have been bought into the satanic overreach of the deep state or the globalists. And we're back to everything we've talked about with susceptibility, but it still goes back to, if you're talking about COVID or anti-vax, if you're talking about the other things that we talked about, I know I don't have to keep summarizing. I hope people remember what the hell we're talking about.
Right.
It is always about some outside force that is affecting them in a way that they have to fight. And that force is difficult to grasp. It's like fighting smoke. It's so powerful, right? You're always just at the reach of proving it, but you just can't, because right then, Seth Rich gets killed.
Right. Which
or
is
right then,
she's had horrible things to say about. Yeah.
Right. Or And or, when she talks about Hillary Clinton, right? Or Vince Foster just got right at the edge when they were going to find out about the Clintons.
Right.
There's always that conspiratorial thing, that nugget, that link in the chain that the deep state and the globalists can control to break that chain where they can't quite prove that false flag, or they can't quite prove that conspiracy theory. They can't quite prove that adrenochrome was being harvested from children at the Comet ping pong, right? They can't, There's always that edge that
the deep state was so good they filled in a basement and made it look like it didn't exist.
Which is amazing. I've been to Comet Ping Pong, and that's what people don't realize. I went there to see if there was a basement because I knew there wasn't. I ate there and said, "Hey, you guys got a basement?" And they laughed. So that's the issue, is that you have to be facts-based, I believe, if you're going to represent the American people. But what we have right now is we have people, again, you've talked about 4 amazing things already, which is just a tip of the iceberg. Maybe 5. We've talked about martial law, Stop the Steal, QAnon, and all that. But I think what we're talking about is that we do have this professional conspiratorial agitator class that's part of our United States government right now.
Yeah. Yes. And okay, so one last one, and this is actually gonna kind of bring us into almost the wrap up of it. I feel like this kind of brings some stuff full circle, and we're going to talk about 9/11. Now,
that hits me dear, hits me hard.
Exactly,
might get me angry. Yes,
right. Okay. So here's some full disclosure stuff on me. Now, in the George W. Bush years, I was a 20-year-old, 21, 20, kid. Essentially adult, yes, but kid in terms of voting age and all of that stuff. And I was all into the there was a lot of punk bands that did rock against Bush, and he's the worst ever, he's an idiot, all of that stuff, right? You know what? While I was totally get rid of him, all of that stuff. Guess what I never believed? I never believed he had anything like that. It was an inside job. I never, and I don't understand why people think like that. Again, it's I could, hot-headed 22-year-old me, could ascribe any horrible policy and every, what I saw as fault in our country to George W. Bush. But I never, it didn't even occur to me to go into the whole he let it happen or any of that stuff. Again, was there things that could be done better? Sure. Was there failings? Sure. But was it intentional? No. So what do you think now? And it's even weirder because now we're talking about same party, right? But the party's changed so much that Marjorie Taylor Greene has no problem basically saying the Republicans let it happen.
We'll talk about Russia and Ukraine on another Mighty Peculiar show, because we could go into that too, right? But if you talk about 9/11, you're talking to somebody who deployed on or about September 21st of 2001 from a lockdown base, an air expeditionary wing, right, where I'd been trained on F-15s, F-16s, and B-1s. Not only that, I was an intelligence officer. So I got to see some of the first intelligence coming over the wire while I was packing connexes to put on a C-5, right, to head over to Diego Garcia, where the B-1s initially actually flew from to bomb Afghanistan.
Yeah.
My specialty was caves. Like I would go after terrorists in caves. That was my thing. With the type of weaponry we used, but all types of targeting, I was an expert. So I know a lot about 9/11, probably more than most.
Right.
And I was part of 9/11. I was there. I was 31 years old when 9/11 happened. I'd already had a very distinguished enlisted career, went to the University of Virginia, came out, right? My background was Eastern European, right, politics, but I'd also been trained, right? And at that time, which was, as you know, was Islamic radicalism, right? And fundamentalism, extremism. So I was very, very in tune with what was happening at the time. And obviously we also had audio, video, evidence of what happened, right? Incontrovertible evidence of what happened, not only at the towers, but at the Pentagon. Also, just to let people know, my Air Force buddies were at the Pentagon.
Right, because that's her specialty in terms of when you look at 9/11, like as a whole thing, from a conspiracy perspective, she really focuses a lot on on the Pentagon.
That it wasn't a plane, right?
That it wasn't a plane, or that nothing happened. She's kind of it seems like this happens a lot. Seems like she's been in multiple places in terms of exactly what it is she says she thinks happened or didn't happen. Because sometimes it's nothing happened. Sometimes it's, it was a missile. Sometimes, so that's where she's focused. Let's say that.
Yeah. I mean, that's her channeling her attunement was the Pentagon, right? And, right. I can take fake moon landing conspiracy theorists, right?
Yeah.
I can take those knobs. But when you're talking about 9/11 conspiracy theorists, they are the belly crawlers of conspiracy theorists. They're the 9/11 truthers are the belly crawlers of conspiracy theorists because thousands of people died.
Right.
Right. And when you're talking about aircraft, you're talking about buildings, you're talking about people on the ground, you're talking about the New York City Fire Department, you're talking about law enforcement, you're talking about volunteers, you're talking about sickness that happened afterwards, you're talking about, anything that the cancers that happened after the fact. All this stuff happened because we had a terrorist attack on our nation by Islamic terrorists. That is simply it. It is baseline. 9/11 truthers, to me, if we want to wrap this up, just like everything else, it's a deep state globalist plot that somehow wants to push our country towards a certain end. And it's either, it's the Great Reset. It's it's all these type of conspiracy theories that have sort of metastasized and memed themselves into millions of people in the United States of America. We are in a fact-based information war right now, right? Where our facts-based people have to overcome fantasy, have to overcome satanic panic, have to overcome crisis actor false flags, have to overcome QAnon specifically and Stop to Steal, have to overcome 9/11 truther type of stuff that we're doing here. And have to overcome space lasers. All that stuff is what our fight is against. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is the embodiment of the conspiracy theory problem, of the conspiracy theory cancer that's throughout this country. Marjorie Taylor Greene is sort of patient zero. Yeah. And I think and she sort of encompasses all of that in a bag of donuts. And the Freedom Caucus still kicked her out because she's not crazy enough, or she's an insane moderate, or it's because she just spoke out of turn to somebody else who is equally conspiratorial, and Lauren Boebert. So those are the issues that we have. I know that I just went full Denver Riggleman, left, right, but that's just the way, that's where we're at. And I think that's the fight.
Yeah. And I didn't even have to call Doug in. He showed up. Although, Doug, before you shake your head at us like that.
No, I'm not shaking my head at you. I'm not. It's a tough subject, right? Like,
no, it's a tough subject. But something you just said brought up a question I hadn't even planned on asking. But in looking at 9/11 and looking at January 6th and the conspiracy theories that have, emerged around them, do you think there's like a special? Do you think there's a special intensity on the part of the conspiracy theorists that almost like the challenge that so much of both events happened on television, right? Like, because does that appeal to something in them that kind of says like, we all saw this happen, so it's going to be harder to prove that it's going to be harder to like create a false narrative, but I want that challenge. Does that factor in, do you think?
I think some people know how to monetize it. I think if you're smart enough to monetize it and get into, the ignorance channels on alternate and social media, I think you have a really good chance of being a spokesperson for myth, fantasy, right? And the unserious that becomes dangerous. I mean, I think it's that simple. And, I know that there's some people might actually believe that God told them that 9/11 was an inside job, or that January 6th was just a bunch of patriots, that were peaceful tourists. But the thing is that there's an incredible talent for people that are conspiracy theorists to reject fact and data that's right in front of their face.
Right.
And I don't know how you do that. Like, I don't know if it's training. I don't know if I just been blessed with I think I almost have this wish that life was more boring, right? That it was more facts based. But I believe that some people are put here for certain things, right? And for me, if I'm put here for a certain thing, it was just like, can I be the guy to push facts? And Doug and Matt, I would humbly submit, I think you guys are also some of that, where it's just, why can't we just have truth and facts? Why can't we have a boring, mundane look at what awfulness is? Life brings enough terror and awfulness without making things up. And so now this boredom of this boring facts and data game becomes absolutely exciting and critical for the United States public, is that we go into it. Listen, I'm not particularly religious. Even when I say I was put here for a reason, I don't know if that reason just was accidental, it was training, or it's just I hate bullies, right? And I hate people that do bad things to bad people. But I think that's why it's important when we're doing this show and what we did with research based on people self-identifying, why it's so important to at least bring this to people to say, hey, we're going to help with your common sense meter any way we can. We're not arrogant about it. We don't know any better than most people, but we've been around. Yeah. And all of us have a special life and training in what we've done to bring something that's honest and truthful to people, regardless, if we use humor and things like that.
Well said.
Yeah, definitely.
Matt, a long time, about 2 decades ago, I interviewed one of the kids who made the Loose Change documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I told them off, because they didn't know how plumbing worked. They were like, you see, it's clearly demolition. I'm like, I've had lunch in that building. I worked in a mailroom in that building. There is plumbing and gas lines that go all the way up. They didn't have to be planted there. Right.
Right.
These kids are, Jersey, man, kids, I'm joking, but they were from Jersey and they wanted to be filmmakers. And,
right.
And Gandolfini, of all people, who they ran into, gave them advice, like, how do I become a filmmaker? And he's like, and he said something effective, like, make something that'll mesmerize people. He was being sincere. He wasn't saying go out and make a 9/11 documentary on, Photoshop Premiere or whatever it was. Right, because it was poorly made.
It was terrible. I mean, they had to keep revising it, so many times just to make it watchable.
But these kids, they were kids, that made this, and and they were just making a thing, and just But I have a hard time with this episode because I feel like, as silly as the material could be, right? I have a hard time believing that a board house, and Matt and I have this conversation a lot. I don't want to be caught speculating on camera. Just don't, right? Because I have a hard time believing that this bored housewife, just got caught up in an algorithm, right? And now she has the Speaker of the House by the leash. Yeah. How vulnerable of a country are we, or how vulnerable are the machinations of government where that's possible? That pop culture is now this. We have your Tim Pools, your Trey Crowders, your Alex Joneses. This is a business, and she's now in the front of it. That's absurd to me.
It is absurd, and I think if I were to wrap up that question specifically, is that we have 435 districts that have been gerrymandered to a point, right, that it's hard to even recognize some of them, right? Yeah. My district looked like a dragon riding a scooter, right? I mean, it was insane. So you also have this evangelical base in some of these districts, the way it's been gerrymandered, or what the belief systems are that allows the Marjorie Taylor Greene to actually get to that point. Now, break. I have to get this Uber to go to my dinner right now. So, and I hate to, yes. So, because I was supposed to be there at 7:15 and it's
well, Deborah, really quick. I just wanted to, before you leave, I know you have to leave, but I wanted to thank you for fixing my laptop. Thank you very much. But I think you gave me the wrong one. We'll talk about it later, maybe in the cab.
Okay.
Over signal. Okay.
I'm very confused.
Yeah, you gave me the wrong one.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I just want to say about this laptop shit. We'll talk about it next time.
Oh, that's a team. Man, what a pro.
Wow, that was like a Marvel stinger.
Yeah. Whoa. Stick around for the end credits or something. I don't know. Like,
I gotta go.
Denver can leave. Doug and I gotta go. We'll just wrap this little. We'll land this plane.
No, I'm out. I can't even.
Good night, Denver.
Out.
See you. Okay, now you guys are left with the unelectables. All right.
That's right.
Trademark.
Shout out to the comments section.
Woo! Because Denver had to leave, the conclusion of the episode didn't get discussed. Can we do it really quick?
Yeah, we can, certainly. Okay.
Just because, like, I kept hinting at it. And I feel like we need to.
Right. Let's not foreshadow a blank space.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Especially because if you look under my name, if you're watching it, you see it says allowing you to believe.
Right.
And I really hate if we didn't explain this. So one of the things that I found most interesting about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it would be great if the formerly elected Republican was still here so I can ask like about the party of personal responsibility, but let's set that aside and just say, when pressed on all of the stuff we just talked about and stuff we didn't talk about, but all of the conspiracies that she advocated and believed or whatever.
Right.
Her denial, disavowal, whatever, was she said, I was allowed to believe things that weren't true. And I would ask questions about them and talk about them. And that is absolutely what I regret. Now, in that, we don't really hear any kind of, contrition, right? Like, hey, man, I shouldn't have yelled at the kid that was in the Parkland shooting because maybe that was insensitive of me.
Right.
She just says, I was allowed to believe it. And she doesn't say who allowed her to believe it, why she's so susceptible to these things and couldn't exercise, maybe judgment, which you would hope as an elected official with the ear of the Speaker of the House.
Right. I mean, there's no shame anymore at all, is there? Like, it just, I'm still stuck on Moloch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. It's spelled two different ways, and that always bothers me because I'm like, just land on one, man. Like,
right? Yeah, I don't like that kind of inconsistency. It's unseemly.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is. Oh. So, anyways, I felt like that was something that I just wanted to say as the wrap up of.
Well, it's an amazing thing that she learned from Trump, right? Like you said, like when he backpedals out of things.
Yep.
And then it's not an apology.
Nope.
When he has to say a thing, it's almost like we talked about this earlier. It's almost like he solved the thing that was the problem that he made a problem in the first place.
Right.
You should be grateful to him for solving it.
Yeah, it's he breaks it, blames it on someone else, and then comes in and is the solution.
Right.
Because he did that, and we talked about this, but it was I don't think her statement of I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, I don't think that happens without him in 2016 addressing birtherism and blaming it on Hillary Clinton for starting and him finishing it.
Yeah.
Which is a nonsense statement, but it is exactly it's the way to basically not have to upset the people that support you because of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to look at it and go, yeah, that's what they had to say. So they're in on the joke.
Yeah, that's the infuriating thing, right? Like her base is in on the joke. She's got to talk to what they call the normies, right? Because that's what we're called by those specific people, right?
Yes.
Which is hilarious on a lot of levels. But it's but the normies, she has to address them and calm down,
So they'll give her the room.
Read your forums, you dopes.
Right. Oh,
you know, it's endless fun.
No, it's so much fun. Like,
yeah,
this one was a blast. Let me tell you guys, like, just knowing that someone out there in a position of power has not yet met a conspiracy theory that she doesn't just love is helps me sleep at night.
Yeah. Well, wrap this show up so we can go back on the internet and be called beta male cucks by men with 4th grade reading levels.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, that's my new Twitter handle, beta male cuck. But no, I'm sure that's already taken, actually. But yeah, all right. Well, that's it for this week. It was great. We did a great job. Denver was a little iffy. I don't know, man. Like, I think let's talk about him since he's not here.
Right. I don't know what he thought. Yeah.
But yeah.
Seemed a little uncertain. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he have an opinion? I don't think so. But yes.
He was trying to find it out loud, I think.
But thank you all for watching and listening. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, email us, reach out on Twitter. I'm at Matt Begins. Doug?
I'm at, I guess I still am on Twitter. L. Douglaso.
There we go. All right. Thank you, guys.
Like my 5th burner account. On, straight. On, straight.